Is it not ridiculous? It's
very
ridiculous.
ridiculous.
Why do we have those people working there? And I think going forward, one of the things that we can try our hands on is we can begin to restructure the way the NDDC does its business. One of the things that I would suggest is a project-based taxation system. A project-based taxation system. Now, the NDDC Act provides that oil companies are to make 3% to provide 3% of their profit for the funding of the NDDC. I would prefer a situation where that money is not released to the NDDC directly. So each company that is supposed to make that contribution can come out with a development plan of a sector within the catchment area of the NDDC master plan to say, okay, my responsibility as a company, our responsibility as a company will have to be to link all the NDDC catchment areas with roads and bridges. You understand? And the function of the government would now merely be reduced to providing the legal framework for standard, the standard of projects that they want from these companies. Rather than give the money to NDDC, they do these projects themselves. Because why did I say so? These companies that are run privately are making profits. Is NDDC, the way NDDC is run, if it's a private organization, would it not have winded up now? Because these companies are very diligent. They are very diligent in the management of resources, and I believe that they can properly deploy these resources for the betterment of the Niger Delta people, rather than giving this money to this band of political class that are hell-bent on entrenching nothing but their interests. So I think a solution to the problem in the NDDC is a project-based taxation system that will help at least reduce financial flow. Now, people would say, I know people will criticize this idea on the basis that it will leave the NDDC less with money. What we want to see is development. Now, but what I mean by a project-based tax system, this company can come and say, okay, our own project is to establish young men in the Niger Delta. So if a company's 300%, 3% is $300 million, they can say, rather than giving the money to the NDDC, we want to sponsor 300 business ideas in the Niger Delta. So that means people in the Niger Delta will have, not only will they be creating jobs by that type of insight, they will also be affecting life, because people will be gainfully employed and people will have businesses that will service the service area, and we will begin to make progress in how we do things. So in the absence of that, I think another thing that we can...
Hold on a minute. I think that was exactly what was happening before the establishment of the NDDC. And it didn't work.
No, that was
the
because...
whole essence of establishing the NDDC, because that formula you're objecting for us, that what you're suggesting was what used to happen. And they were also found out that in most cases, they would go to the communities to say, what are the needs of this community, so that we can, our social responsibility.
Corporate social responsibility. I don't agree with you. Do you know why? What I'm suggesting is different from what have existed in the past. Under the corporate social responsibility system as we had, there was no legal framework. There was no governing legal framework. And that is why people like us were calling for the implementation of the Petroleum Industry Bill, because the Petroleum Industry Bill had a fund which they referred to as the host community funds. You understand? And the administration of that fund is supposed to catalyze development in the Niger Delta. Now, under the system that I'm proposing a project-based taxation system where they use their percentage of interest, their quantum of contribution to sponsor development in the Niger Delta. You understand? So what will be different from the corporate-based, corporate social responsibility system that is all regulated in the time past, will be that there will be a legal framework. There will be a legal framework for this project tax development system. Now, the legal framework will delimit things like the standard of project expected. You understand? You're going to have regulation. It will have things like monitoring. It will have punishment for infracting companies, companies who go against their project, their project plan, their corporate project plan for the Niger Delta. It will have punishment for them. Companies who execute projects below the standards, it will have punishment like the offense, the cost of the capital project, even if they have invested money trying to procure a project of less quality. So the difference is that there's going to be an enabling legal framework. An enabling legal framework will exist. Under the corporate social responsibility arrangement, there is absolutely no legal framework moderating it. And that is the problem.
Well, I must say that listening to what your suggestion, it sounds all coupled, sounds all nice. Hopefully, I pray that other people are reasoning like you. However, where we are at the moment is that a few persons have passed through the Niger Delta Development Commission and have misused the fund meant for millions of people who are impoverished by the exploration of oil from their soil. The Niger Delta region suffers from, of course, you know, the agricultural produce from the waters are almost zero because of the exploration of oil from their soil. Now, the thing is, at this juncture, looking at the probe and how it is going, if you were the president, and you have watched these events from, you've seen the accusations, counter accusation, let's say you are the president, what would you do at this point?
If I were to be the president, Muhammad Buhari, what I'm going to do is, I will take over the probe myself. I will commission an independent organization, not necessarily made up of government officials, because government officials are amenable to corruption. You understand? You talked about the problem of godfatherism. That's a huge problem. So those who have been appointed by godfathers, if they are part of the probe panel, then you and I know that you and I could guess what the outcome of the probe would be. So an independent organization, we need independent, the president should commission an independent organization like, what's it called? Like KPMG, for example. These are known internationally reputable audit companies to audit the NDDC. Just the way the NNPC was recently audited. You know that since the NNPC came into existence, there have been no audit of the NNPC. No audit. Meanwhile, private companies audit themselves almost on a yearly basis. So, if I were the president, at least we would want to have like access to these independent audits. These companies have their reputation on the line, so they won't want to jeopardize their reputation. They have international credibility. So bring them in, let them do a forensic audit of the NDDC from 2000, from the year 2000 when it was established to 2019, so that we can ascertain from where the water leaked into the community. Because the NDDC, under its structural complexion, cannot advance development. The NDDC is simply a chop-by-chop organization. Is a chop-by-chop organization. It's nothing more than a chop-by-chop organization. And if we want to dispel its chop-by-chop reputation, we need a forensic audit. But then, that audit will not be headed by, for example, say an Akpabio, who also is accused of complicity, you understand, and the award and inflation of contract. It will also not stop at the box of the National Assembly or a committee of the National Assembly who have also been accused of complicity in the awards of contracts. So I think it needs to be headed by an independent organization, and only the president can ensure that that comes to pass. The terms of reference for another thing that the president must do must that the terms of reference for the forensic audit must not exclude any administration in the NDDC from 2000 to 2019. Everybody needs to be to the current administration. Everybody needs to be investigated, so that we would know how the president, so that we will know how the NDDC $40 billion on capital projects, and yet the Niger Delta region is still like a glorified slum. We must definitely end this chop I chop mentality in the NDDC.
Oh, I must say that your contributions tonight have been very valid. I really wish the president was listening to us right now to actually hear the approach, because he has been a bit quiet about the matter, even though we know that his office is directly in charge of employment of people who head the NDDC. And if you look at the matter now, it almost seems as though they are rounding circles. Because if you ask me, that probe today, that the public hearing that ended today, for me, there is no cruise. I can't feel any depth. It ended with accusation, counter accusation. For me, it is the most inconclusive public panel I've ever seen, like public probing I've ever seen. Because for me, there was no conclusion.
That is why we are calling for an independent forensic audit. An independent forensic audit, which the president must commission, the president himself, not only as supervisory head of the agency, of the NDDC, but also as chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the head of the executive. The NDDC just exists there to execute development plans for the federal government. So it is part of the executive functions of the president. So the president needs, this is the right time to commission an independent forensic audit to purge the NDDC of this chop-by-chop mentality. Or else we'll be going round in circles and development will be very far from the people of the Niger Delta.
Now, let's get to the issue of corruption. I asked earlier who will probe who, because we used to think the EFCC was like the sacred people who were holier than thou. But with the recent happening with Magu being enrolled in having properties, choice properties around the world, and of course being entwined deeply into corruption, though it's alleged, not yet proved by any court of law, but these are the accusations. Would you say that our penalty for corrupt practices is mild? Because recently we had a particular corruption case that has lingered for a long time that was judged technically in favor of the person who was accused, and there were several evidences before the court of law. And this person was not taken out of this matter because he was incorrupt. No, because there was a technical error somewhere. Do you think that even the judiciary sort of weakens the effort to fight corruption? Everything in Nigeria seems to be in support of corrupt practices, from godfatherism to even from the presidency down to the local government. Everybody seems to be like okay with this. Do you think that we could make the punishment for corrupt practices stiffer? That way it might help in taking us somewhere in terms of Nigeria being cleaned up a little bit.
Yes, I think one of the problems why corruption has festered is that I was discussing with one of my friends today at work, and I told him that one of the reasons why corruption has festered in most African countries is that the punishment for corruption is very mild. When a man knows that through plea bargaining, in fact, do you know what they do? Lawyers are used to this language, plea bargaining. You know, somebody steals like $20 billion or $20 million. He returns back $5 million and negotiates a shorter sentence. I don't know if you're getting me. Like, they can give him like 1, 2, 3, or 4 years suspended sentence. And the person is free. Or the person goes to prison for 1 year and the person is free. You understand? I will recommend, although people and international human rights organizations might disagree with me, but I will recommend the death penalty for corrupt officials. Why? Because why would I recommend the death penalty for corrupt public officials? Because corruption is capable of causing more death. It's killing a lot of people. When you steal money that is supposed to be meant for the building of hospitals, it then means that you are promoting a surge in maternal mortality. You understand? It then means that malaria will kill a lot of people. It means that people will die from diseases that ordinarily they ought not to die from. You understand? So when you spend money, when you steal money that is meant for public roads, it means that their potholes will remain on our roads, and vehicles will begin to dangle until they somersault and kill people on a regular basis. But when you fix these roads, it means that you have reduced the possibility of that sort of situation showing up, or people dying from that type of from bad roads. So when you steal monies that are meant for the development of the youth, it means that unemployment will continually be their companion. It will continue to be their companion until they take to antisocial responsibilities. And when they take to antisocial behaviors like robbery, it is either they die or they will kill people. You understand? So those who are complicit in corruption are murderers. And what do you do to murderers? Come on. So you kill the person.
Yeah.
So I would
I get
recommend a capital punishment. I would recommend capital punishment for those who have been found guilty. Now mark my words, found guilty of corruption. Another thing that we need to address is the seamlessness of procuring evidence. I think one of the things that Nigeria can do to make it easy to trail corruption is to go digital. One of the things that Nigeria can do, I was very happy recently when I heard that the President Buhari has commissioned a panel to give every Nigerian digital identity. Now that was that was a function. I thought the Nigerian Identity Management Commission was doing that already. But this is a step in the right direction. First, we must know how many we are. Give every Nigerian a digital identity. Then secondly, link the digital identity to the bank accounts of Nigeria. Link it to the properties that they own. Let us have PIN, property identification numbers. So if there are 580,000 properties in Abuja, let us know those who have those properties. There is no such thing as offshore properties. No, or properties that are hidden from people. Let us know those. Let us know those who own those properties. So if Dangote owns 400 properties, we'll say yes. Means of livelihood, and see if we can afford 400 properties. Because do you know that in Nigeria there is a law there's a law that provides that if you cannot account for your wealth, it's a criminal offense for you not to account for your wealth.
I know that.
It's a criminal offense for you not to account for your wealth. So by the time we have for example PIN, property verification numbers. If I have 30 properties and all my years I have not worked for any reputable institution on the basis of which I can finance the acquisition of those properties, it now behoves on the government to say, tell us how you made this money for the properties. Tell us how you acquired these properties. And then if I'm unable to provide any logical explanation for how I acquired the property, the government seizes the properties and punish me adequately. Until we have such a system that is based on not only the digital identities of Nigeria, we will not be able to solve the riddle of corruption. We will not also be able to trail corruption. Today we have the offense of money laundering. But I can tell you that in Nigeria we still practice what they call ghost banking. You understand? Ghost banking, bank managers, they still provide 1 billion. They can send 1 billion to a politician's house. Why is it happening? Why are people not questioning that type of arrangement? But it's still an offense in Nigeria for somebody to withdraw more than 2 million naira over the counter. But people during election, ask yourself, during election, where do they get 1 billion to share in all the local government? The money they share, is it 2 million? How do they cash it? Who are those who release these monies to them in the bank? Who are those who fail to report to CBN when people like this show up? They are Nigerians like you and I. So I think Nigeria, the Nigerian system needs a wholesale purge to be able to stand the chance of fighting corruption and fighting it more effectively.
The question that comes to mind is, who will help who? When the federal government, of Muhammadu Buhari came in place, there was the whole corruption fight championing, what's it called, the campaign theme for his administration. Though we would say that, yes, in his administration, more corrupt practices have been exposed, all right? But I would say that even, there was a time we had someone that was cutting grasses at the IDP camp for 500 million for clearing grasses, and that was under the presidency's nose. So would we say that, I don't know, sometimes I sorry to say this, when it comes to confidence, I have low confidence for probing and what's it called, fighting corruption to the latter in Nigeria. Beautiful suggestions that we have, death penalty, but who will make that law? Who will agree to make that law? Because even in the National Assembly, those are the people that will make the law. So if you cannot have members that would champion what you are suggesting, how would we even fight corruption? Because they are entwined. You heard that Fabio accused them openly today. And as a matter of fact, even though the woman kept raising her voice and saying, that was very wrong, the other man was telling her, please leave this. Because they would rather not talk about that there.
Now, can I say something? I think when we say who will do this, there is a role for those in government. There is also a role for citizens. And I think one of the greatest problems of Nigeria have been the docility of its citizens. The docility of its citizens. Many years ago, Martin Luther King said something that I made a quote that I am very, very passionate about. And he said that the development of a nation does not lie on the fortification of its strength, that it does not lie on the beauty of its public buildings, but on its men of culture and enlightenment. So you that is making the accusation against government, do you offer bribes to police officers? You understand? You that want the probe to be effectual and resolved, do you bypass protocol? You understand? You know what I mean by bypassing protocol? You understand? When you are in a public place, would you stand in a line? Would you wait for your turn? Those are the little things that count. Do you have an overbloated expectation when your brother holds a public position? Now, let me give you an instance. My brother works for the governor of Rivers State. One of my brothers works for the governor of Rivers State. He is in the board of internal revenue. I have no expectation whatsoever from him. But he's my brother. We live in cordiality. I have zero or no expectation from him. So a situation where, a system where, when your brother gets into a public appointment like Nddc, you begin to nurse overbloated expectation. You begin to register like 3, 4, 5 companies with the hope that you will carry contracts. It's not a system that will be ready to fight.
Sorry to cut you, but if the person who is registering this company is capable of doing the job and is not going to be given an overbloated contract figure.
That's what I'm saying. Now, I said I have no problem with anybody who is capable of doing a job, doing a contract. No. That is not my problem. My problem is in the expectation. Because your brother is in a situation to give out contracts. You understand? Then he does bypass protocols. For example, what is the function of the BPE? Bureau of Public Enterprise. What's their function in the procurement process? What is their function? If you bypass that function,
ensure that everything goes
yes, if you
according
bypass,
to
if you
process.
bypass their function, have you, are contracts supposed to be awarded to you? A breach of public procurement rule is it is it is it in line with the perception of fighting corruption? No. So I think the citizens also must reduce their expectations, especially for their relatives who are in power. Because why? Corruption has a political economy. When you put pressure on public officers, they will steal money, and they will use that money to satisfy, to shout women oye in their communities. You know, when you shout women oye, you don't just shout women oye. You understand? There's something that backs up the women oye, and its Ghana must go back. So people should reduce their expectations on public officers and then take back their power. I believe that the people of Nigeria do not understand the quantum of power that they have. People need to take back the power. Power needs to move back from the elites to the people. To the people. They have the power. If you send somebody to the National Assembly and he is complicit in corruption, he is busy taking contracts, he is busy taking contracts from Nddc. You understand? Rather than making laws for the order and good governance of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. You recall him, you exercise your power of recall. How many lawmakers have been recalled in Nigeria? Is it that the people do not have the power? They do have the power. Have they exercised it? No, they have not exercised it. And that is where the people should begin to be enlightened about their self-interest and begin to enforce those self-interests. Until they do that, and they do it with a clear conscience, we will not be able to nip corruption in the bud.
It's okay. We've had a very, very engaging discussion this evening. And like I said earlier on, I wish the president was listening to you tonight, because I mean, you've given quite a load of suggestions that will take the nation forward and the Niger Delta region forward. Thank you very much. We've actually been speaking with a legal practitioner and a political analyst. His name is Charles Aholo. Thank you very much for joining us on Factor Chat with Debbie. Thank you very much. We'll send out your views via news, and it will be, of course, on our YouTube channel, so that generations to come will know that Charles Aholo suggested the way forward for Nigeria. If only we have more people talking like you were talking, perhaps the country will not be where it is. You know. Thank you very much for coming by tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. And for those of you who actually did contribute on the show today, a couple of comments here. Please let's know you watched it and you enjoyed it. And by the ways, we have our YouTube channel. Like, the content today will be pushed to the YouTube channel so that you can get to watch it. So if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel for Factor Chat with Debbie, please do so. It's Factor Chat with Debbie. Just search for it on Deborah Balama's TV on YouTube and subscribe. We're doing quite a lot, you know. So of course, your way of encouraging the brand is to subscribe and see what we have to offer, because every content we put out there is always top notch. I put that promise to you. It's been a wonderful time on the program today. You've already heard it from our analyst today on the show. It's basically garbage in, garbage out. I tell people every day that the common man on the street is the person that eventually turns out to be the president, you know, because the president was once a little boy who grew up in a normal community. The president was once a normal person like you and I, you know. So I think that it tells who we are. The kinds of leaders we have tells the kind of people we are. Those of you who sit in your sport and scream corruption, 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 how are you abiding to your own, to the rules in your own little space? How do you oppress people in your own little space? How do you inflate and cheat people? Just imagine during the COVID-19 break, lockdown, people were inflating prices even when the prices of goods did not add at all. It tells you what kind of people we are, what kind of country takes advantage of their fellow citizens in a time of crisis, when you should actually feel the pains of the person who is beside you, that they are going through a situation that, you know, you are also going through. So it tells us where we are as a country. I think for us is basically to start fighting corruption from the grassroots. When you're you're training your children, how you guard them, what you teach them, how you let them understand that these things, there are no shortcuts. It's if you want to buy something, queue up. You know, you're not higher than anybody. You know, so I mean, why do we have political powers being abused in Nigeria every now and then? Are these not the same powers that are occupied by people in the United States of America? Why is it different here? So it brings us to the point that it's all about our persons. It's all about who we are and who we're churning out as our leaders. You know, because for me, it's garbage in, garbage out. Anyways, I'll take Charles Aholu's suggestion. For me, I think the whole panel and the whole probing thing, for me, doesn't have a climax. I say that because the climax of that today was that we got to find out that there are people, there are accusations also that are hitting the National Assembly members. So, which means that at this point, an independent body needs to take over that probing and let us have an independent, unbiased probe that would yield results. And everyone that's ever held position in the NDDC should be questioned, from the first MD of the NDDC till the present. Everybody should be questioned. And for once, let us see people who would be sentenced to, to be punished actually. And I think it's high time we visit the penalty for corrupt practices in Nigeria. It's been a wonderful time on the show. Follow us on Factual Chat with Debbie. We stream news there. All the videos of the dramas that happened today during the probe is actually on our fan page, so you can go check it out. Factual Chat with Debbie. Follow us on Instagram at Deborah Balama, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you very much for being there. It's been Factual Chat with Debbie. Have a good night.
Exclusively on Factual Chat with Debbie. Watch on our YouTube channel today. Search Factual Chat with Debbie on Deborah Balama's TV on YouTube to watch. You can also follow us on Instagram at Deborah Balama and on Facebook at our fan page on Factual Chat with Debbie.